I love a great science fiction book to screen adaptation, and while they don't always work, I would be very excited to see these books, 5 of my favorites, adapted into TV shows or movies. So what I want to do for each of these 5 is share why I love them, why I think the style or structure could suit an adaptation, and just for fun, who could possibly direct them. So let's get started with Ubik by Philip K. Dick. In the near future, corporations deploy psychics and anti-psychics in acts of corporate espionage. When a security team is ambushed, a man is killed then placed in half-life, a form of cryonic suspension to preserve his consciousness, and the rest of the team experiences strange shifts in reality. So why do I love Ubik? There's a great mystery in this book revolving around what is real or not real, and it's an interesting journey to discover what exactly is the reason for these strange things happening. I also think it's a thematically rich book with some interesting ideas to do with consumerism, death, and spirituality. I also found there to be some intriguing characters, and the dialogue was pretty funny at times as well. And finally, I thought the ending of this book was just absolutely mind-blowing. Why would Ubik suit an adaptation? Firstly, the book is only 200 pages long, so I think that the core plot elements should be able to fit within a 2-hour time frame. Secondly, I think something that Philip K. Dick does masterfully well in this book is create a particular sense of tone and atmosphere. There's this real sense of mysterious, surreal paranoia that permeates all the way throughout the story, and I think with the right visual effects and soundtrack, this could definitely be a rewarding watching experience for the audience. And finally, I think PKD stories lend themselves to adaptations. There's a pretty decent track record in this regard with films such as Blade Runner, Total Recoil, and Minority Report. Who could direct? Apparently there have been several plans to adapt Ubik, including one with Michel Gondry, which I think would have been a great fit because of his work on The Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. But that didn't end up happening, so for this one I have picked Richard Linklater. Linklater has a long career, but the reason why I picked him in particular for this one is his experiencing adapting Philip K. Dick's work, A Scanner Darkly. This wasn't as commercially successful as other PKD adaptations, but I thought it did an excellent job of capturing the tone of the book with some memorable performances and a unique visual style. Moving on to number 2, we have Sea of Rust by C. Robert Cargill. Humankind is extinct. Now the world is controlled by one-world intelligences that have assimilated the minds of millions of robots. But not all robots are willing to cede their individuality, and Brittle is one of the holdouts. Brittle has to evade capture long enough to find rare parts to make repairs, but as their CPU deteriorates, all their old memories resurface. So why do I love Sea of Rust? The plot and pacing in this book is phenomenal. It's action-packed and it has a great sense of humor too. It also has some awesome sci-fi concepts to do with things like large-scale artificial intelligences, as well as some interesting themes regarding consciousness. It also, in my opinion, deftly balances 2 different timelines, which I found to be equally engaging, and they manage to help serve each other. Why would Sea of Rust suit an adaptation? Sea of Rust has a cinematic quality to it, and it feels like it was written by a screenwriter. And that's because it was. C. Robert Cargill is actually known less for his novels and more for his films, including the screenplay for Doctor Strange. So if there's anybody that would be qualified to write the screenplay adaptation for Sea of Rust, I think it would be Cargill. And lastly, I think the post-apocalyptic setting, populated by robots, could provide the opportunity for some great cinematography and visual effects. Who could direct? There's a lot of great action comedy directors, but many of them tend to write and direct as opposed to directing adaptations or other writers' works. So one that came to mind for me was Shawn Levy. Levy has a ton of action comedies under his belt, including most recently Free Guy and The Adam Project. But the main reason that Levy came to mind for me was that he has directed 10 episodes of Stranger Things, which I absolutely love, and he might have directed possibly my all-time favorite episode with Dear Billy. Next, at number 3, we have Red Rising by Pierce Brown. Red Rising is the story of Darrow, who's a Red, the lowest caste of a color-coded society of the future. Darrow experiences tragedy, uncovers secrets, and attempts to infiltrate the Gold Society through the Institute, a school in which children compete in order to graduate into an elite level in society. So why do I love Red Rising? Red Rising is a character-driven sci-fantasy story. It has a great cast of characters with strong motivations and differing perspectives. It's also action-packed with some great twists and turns. It starts out with a battle royale type premise, but then it expands into a big space opera. I also really enjoyed the strategic battles in the series, whether they were political battles behind the scenes or actual war on the battlefield. Why would Red Rising suit an adaptation? Red Rising creates a deeply dystopian society on the planet of Mars, and the power dynamics in this world is a little bit reminiscent of The Hunger Games or Game of Thrones. I could see this being a fascinating world for viewers to escape into. I also think that the action sequences would be visually entertaining, and the characters are well written enough that the audience would be able to emotionally resonate with them so that action has a lasting impact. Who could direct? A Red Rising television project is supposed to be in development, and I believe Pierce Brown plans to be the head writer. This has been in the works for a while now, so I'm gonna keep my fingers crossed. I think if they could time a show announcement with the release date of the 7th and final book for the series, that could create a lot of buzz, but that might be wishful thinking on my part. If the show does get made, I could see them targeting some of the House of the Dragons directors, such as Claire Kilner or Miguel Sapochnik. Moving on to number 4, we have A Memory Called Empire by Arkady Martin. Ambassador Mahit travels from an independent station to the Teixcatlanli Empire in order to replace her predecessor that died under mysterious circumstances. Once there, she must navigate a foreign culture, decipher whom she can trust, uncover secrets of the Empire, and protect her own. So why do I love A Memory Called Empire? A Memory Called Empire is a space opera with mystery and political intrigue. I found myself really interested in the characters and really engrossed in the power struggles, as well as trying to determine who exactly was an enemy or an ally. The book borrows world-building ideas from classic science fiction such as Dune and Foundation, but it feels more modern in terms of the character development and the dialogue. Why would A Memory Called Empire suit an adaptation? The book combines aspects of murder mysteries and spy thrillers in an intergalactic empire. I found Teixcatlan to be a vivid setting, and I think that the character-driven narratives really could hook viewers in. I think this book duology would be better suited to a television series than a film, and I think the way the series focuses on a small amount of characters vying for power reminds me of the show Succession, albeit a little bit lighter in tone. Who could direct? While this is a sci-fi space opera, I'd be very tempted to hire the people that worked on the show Succession, because the character dynamics is really what makes it work. I believe the creator Jesse Armstrong has always worked on original projects instead of adaptations, but you might be able to poach some of the other writers and directors such as Mark Mylod or Susan Soon-Hee Stanton. And just before we get to our last book, if you enjoy discussing sci-fi, feel free to join us on Discord. And if you enjoy this kind of content, check out some of the perks of supporting the channel as a patron, such as voting on my TBR and joining video hangouts, and you can become one of my robots, androids, or cyborgs like Nima and a New Eden. And finally, we have what might be the holy grail of sci-fi adaptations, Hyperion by Dan Simmons. Hyperion follows 7 pilgrims on their travels to the planet of Hyperion to visit the Time Tombs, which are moving backwards in time and are guarded by the mysterious and deadly Shrike. So why do I love Hyperion? Hyperion combines some of my favorite aspects of science fiction. I think the world building is ambitious, the characters are unique, the concepts are awe-inspiring, and the thematic explorations are deeply rewarding. I think the first book, Hyperion, masterfully establishes the setting, and while fan reactions are mixed, personally I think that The Fall of Hyperion concludes the first story arc in epic fashion. Why would Hyperion suit an adaptation? I'll be honest, I'm not sure it does. The number of locations, characters, timelines, technologies, it would just make this an absolute monster to film. But the world, the story of Hyperion is just so rich and vivid that I can't help imagining what it would look like on screen. Who could direct? Apparently Bradley Cooper is leading the development of Hyperion as a film. Personally, I think the structure of The Pilgrim's Tales is better suited to an episodic series than a film, but if a film of Hyperion is going to be made, I can't think of anyone that would be better qualified than Denis Villeneuve. With sci-fi adaptations under his belt, including Arrival, Blade Runner 2049, and Dune, as well as a Rendezvous with Rama adaptation on the way, he just might be crazy enough to tackle Hyperion. So those are 5 sci-fi books that I'd love to see on screen. Let me know what's on your wish list, and while we wait for those to get made, you can find more sci-fi content over here.